Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I'm Kisma, and today's episode is really juicy. It's the last for now in our series around my trip to India, and it's entitled Mental Conviction. Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set.
Well, hello there, Nick.
Hello there, Kisma.
What's going on?
Mental conviction.
Do you have mental conviction?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't necessarily have it to the degree that I would like to have it. It's something I work on.
It's a real gift, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, knowing what I know about the Ultimate Life tool and that knowledge and how, how different human beings function differently, it's not a surprise. I think it's something that everybody can develop, but I think certain people have a little bit more of a predisposition to have this. And it's almost like their obstinance works in their favor in certain ways,
Yeah.
Like somebody with who's like a tiger, like really big tiger spoke in there, who's just like, I'm doing it, man. Like, I don't care, and they just get in and go after it without really thinking. Well, that's really different from a person who's like really thinking things through, is getting ultra strategic, and is really
waiting
different.
for it to be perfect or
right. Is really different from that laid back bear spoke, who's like just kind of seeing things in a more intimate way. And they're really relaxed about, things. Like you can always have, I truly believe that anybody can have it and develop it. And it's an incredibly valuable thing to have. And we need a pathway there. Yeah,
we do. And the reason we are talking about this is the context, everyone, is that, again, when I was at the Vedanta Academy, and we have an opportunity to ask questions and get answers. And one of the questions I asked was, what is the difference between fanaticism and conviction?
What inspired this question? I'm curious.
We sat down at small group discussion and nobody had a question. And I was like, well, that's crazy because this is such an opportunity to hear Swamiji speak. So I grabbed one from a list of questions. It was just like, I just honed right in. I want that one. I want to know what the difference is between fanaticism and conviction.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize they have questions.
They have a question bank that you can formulate from if you get stuck.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't even know that existed.
So then when it went for Swamiji to answer, I'm not going to attempt to teach what he taught, but basically it really does come down to the difference between being led only by your emotions and being led or governed by your intellect.
Yeah.
And when we look at like what you just described, the tiger that's going after, well, that can easily go into fanaticism when there is not an intellect to discern what they're going after.
Right.
It can be as simple as, hey, I'm going to go on a diet. And might have this mental conviction, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. And then before you know it, you've turned into a fanatic. I'm only drinking water for 30 days and watermelon juice. Right. So think about those times where, a human being can, and if we look at the religious teachings, because that's where fanaticism really does have its connotation, is, you might be a seeker. You're seeking the highest version of yourself. You're on a path of spirituality, of seeking, and then you get attached or you go for how it feels. You get caught up in a cult or something, and it becomes driven by something other than the intellect and turns into fanaticism.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a really important piece of the whole conversation, is that you don't always know from the outside looking in.
Not always.
You can't always tell.
Yeah.
Like there are certain people who they'll appear fanatical, but they've truly thought through, every piece of their mission, and they're doing what they're doing for very specific reasons, and they're just super, super convicted to it, and like that's the way.
Exactly.
And yeah, that can appear obstinate. It can appear fanatical, and they can also internally have a very clear discernment about what they're doing.
Right. Right.
And I've also seen, it's interesting that you bring up the diet thing, because I've seen, this is something that I think, I've seen a lot of when people go vegan. They go vegan right off, and then they're like automatically, they're like really, they get really fanatical about the whole thing. And this is the way it has to be, and there's no other way, and there's no middle ground at all. And this is how it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, that's pretty intense. And I've also seen people on extremely restrictive diets who need to be that way for a while.
Yeah, to get into the flow of it and develop the pattern, the habit.
Whether it's that or whether it's just because like whatever happened to their body, they have to super restrict what they're able to put into it for a while their whole system resets.
Right.
And that can appear fanatical. And somebody who, you could look at that from the outside and judge that person and say like, you're like, that's way too strict. Like you can't live like that. And internally they might be like, yeah, you're right.
But for now,
this is what I need to do in order to reset my body so that it can do other things.
That's interesting. Well, I pulled up some of Swamiji's notes from The Answer, and I want to share them because it's the flavor of it's really interesting. If we're again talking about like in spirituality, religion, he says the fanaticism is frantically or excessively in religious matters. So there's this frantic energy about it. And fanaticism has little or no intellect at play.
Did he say it like that? Just out of curiosity, energy, like, did he say it?
Oh, he didn't say energy.
Okay.
I added that.
Okay.
He doesn't say energy.
He doesn't. Yeah, he's careful
energy.
About that word.
So fanaticism has little or no intellect at play, as the emotions are wildly up and down, feverish in nature. So he describes the energy by these words, feverish in nature. The results. So here's the important piece, everyone. Just as we know, the results of actions or thoughts will be the same. So if you have fanatic thoughts and actions, you will have those feverish results. It's feverish at play. It's up and down. So if we look at the diet, if it's in that fanatic nature, it's up and down. You're going to have that kind of result. Now, here's the beautiful thing. Conviction has a quality of steadfastness. That to me just anchors it. Conviction has a quality of steadfastness, which demands the intellect to hold the thoughts and focus steady on actions and towards an ideal. I'm just going to read that again, because again, it just blows me away. Conviction has a quality of steadfastness, which demands the intellect to hold the thoughts and focus steady on actions and towards an ideal. If we live our life like that, feels
like a sigh. Yeah,
it's that's mental conviction, that's success, that's happiness, that's health, that's wealth, that's all of it. That's the recipe, everyone. That's the recipe. He also said, he uses again when he goes to the highest. He's like, conviction is moving towards self and less outside of higher spiritual realms. So it's like you can be convicted in your business or whatever, but when we're talking about spirituality, conviction moves towards the self with a capital S. Fanaticism is mind driven. It's addicted to a sense and experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I was just talking with somebody today about creating from anger.
Oh, yeah.
So they've created just noticed they've created a pattern throughout their life.
Right.
Of, like when they kick things off or, when they get stuck in a certain place, like the anger comes in, they've used it in a certain way in order to create a result. And it functions kind of like an addiction at this point. It's like addicted to a certain emotion and a certain kind of energy behind that in order to drive it forward.
Right.
And so it's got a little bit of that tone to it of fanatical need for it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Well, so conviction is moving towards self. Fanaticism is moving away from self.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is like, I'm not putting down any like resources that people use to have expanded consciousness. But if someone is fanatic about doing plant-based or drugs or LSD, if it's selfish in nature and they're fanatical about it, they'll move away from the very thing they seek, which is the self and consciousness.
So, okay, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Is it's like if they are thinking that that's the only way that they can have that, or
if they're doing it through the sense of selfishness, I have to have the experience, I got to do it again, and there's no other, and the intellect is not at play. It's just an experience, and it's not moving them closer to the self-consciousness, etc. It's just an experience. We have to have the intellect to direct we have to have the subtle intellect to direct higher in devotion.
Got it.
It can be beneficial for some people. I mean, that's a whole nother topic, right? But if that's the only thing and it's going back into that for a selfish fix, you're not moving closer to the self.
Yeah, very interesting.
Steadfastness, like think about that word steadfastness. So we're really focused, we're really steadfast. There's a sense of faith. And it's like you're moving, man, one foot in front of the other, really convicted. This is the path. And the ideal piece, having that higher ideal on the other end, is absolutely necessary for the conviction.
Yeah. So this is really about, for everybody here and everybody listening to this, it's really about how to know within yourself.
Exactly.
So I think it's not always easy to tell. Kind of like we said, from the outside looking in, you don't know, what's going on inside of that person that's driving the action. The same way in ourselves, I think sometimes, especially for like the entrepreneurs, or the people who are like just kind of going their own way with things, and maybe they're breaking with family traditions and stuff like that. Like it can seem freaking weird.
Yeah.
And people can get really concerned. Like I'm sure my family has thought that I've joined a cult on a few occasions. And by and large, I've found really, really great communities.
Yeah.
And I've, to the best of my knowledge, I've not been a part of any cults so far. And, but they can get concerned about that.
Yeah.
And certainly their concern that can take hold in my own mind.
Right.
Like where I'm like, maybe I am kind of crazy, like maybe I have gone off the rails here, or I think like sometimes, within myself, I'll be like really working towards something, or I've really just got an ideal that I'm really, and maybe there's like a little bit of a gut check every once in a while. That's like, dude, are you sure about this?
Right.
Like, how sure are you?
Right.
Are you just like, are you just kind of going off the rails here? And it's like, I have to like slow myself down for a second, kind of like we talked about in the last episode, to really give myself an honest check of like, have I gone off the rails?
Right.
Have I lost my perspective?
Exactly.
Or am I really just being steadfast here?
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that. And that's kind of like the value that I'm getting from what you, the
absolutely.
answer that you shared.
And to be fair, it's unless someone is, at least for you and I, hiring us for support. And for those of you out there, it's not really our business what other people are doing.
That's right.
It's just like, okay, interesting. This is about us. This is about our journey. And having that conviction, that steadfastness, having an ideal attached is what's going to keep you centered.
Yeah.
For all of us. I had a follow-up question about this, and I asked one of the senior students, I was like, so once you're on the path of conviction, can you go into fanaticism? He's like, absolutely.
Totally.
It's a bit like you're on the highway and your hands are on the steering wheel, your foot's on the gas, and all of a sudden you decide to take your hands off the steering wheel, or you get distracted and your car starts to go sideways. And I was like, holy cow. That put things in perspective of really, everyone, how focused and how diligent we must be to stay on our path, whatever that is for you. We use a certain kind of language. We're not asking you to follow our language. We're just sharing our experiences. But whatever that is, to have that ideal and to hold steady, because you really do have to keep your hands on the wheel.
Yeah. That's interesting that they bring that up. Just because you had conviction
doesn't mean you'll keep it.
Doesn't mean that it won't slip off the path.
Right.
Like you really have to stay on yourself and on your work. Like for me, like that's why the gut checks every once in a while. It's important to me.
Right.
It's to make sure. Maybe, I don't know, I never really thought about it in these terms, but I wonder if there's, maybe a part of me that like was aware of that tendency. Because I do, like my mind has some addictive tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really, like, substances were never so much the thing for me. But to get addicted to like work, or to get it, to really get
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, maybe it's a story. Harry Potter went down that trail. Still go down that trail every once in a while, but it's like, to really like get into these, like I have that, I know that I have that tendency in myself, and it's like I want to like keep it in check,
right?
Because I know that I can go off the rails a little bit.
For sure. We all have something we got to keep in check.
Yeah. What's your thing?
I mean, I suppose I don't know. Distractions, maybe busyness. Yeah, I don't know. I have so many, like, why put me on the spot? You owned yours. You brought yours up. Like, I don't know. I'm still pondering mine.
I thought we were just having a conversation. I didn't realize it was off limits.
Wow, what's my thing? All I know is I really do seek conviction. I really do. So I don't know.
Cool. Well, maybe it'll come up.
Maybe we'll do a whole episode on my thing.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. But I do think, before we go, again, bringing it back to the practical application, and this is where I can see it would affect me, is like conviction in business.
Right.
I'm really convicted. Yet when would it cross the line of being a fanatic? Like where maybe I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired, because we can all do that, right? We can go into a place where we're in overdrive for the wrong reasons. It's no longer steadfastness.
Right.
It's a little bit of that fanaticism. Yeah. And so I know I'm going to be observing myself and how I approach everything and keeping it super clean and clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the conviction, to build the value for it though.
Is that so essential.
Like I think a lot of people know it, but think about what you're up against in your world, not in like the battle kind of,
but there's
mentality, but think about all the different things that come your way, and all the different ideas and all the different like things that you've been told, and just all the other stuff to do. It's like, if you're not convicted to do what you're here to do, even just on a daily basis, like executing a to-do list, right? You'll get distracted.
Right.
There's Absolutely. A mental conviction to be like, I am completing this list.
Right.
And that's something that I see a lot of people really struggle with.
Yeah.
And it really hurts them in their life.
Yeah.
Is like, they don't follow through.
Yeah.
They don't bring some things to completion.
Right.
And it creates more and more chaos in their world.
Exactly.
And it takes conviction to get there.
Yeah.
It really does, to see it all the way through.
And it takes that sense of belief that it's possible. It's like, even when you come across a hurdle or an obstacle, like, you got to keep the faith. That steadfastness is really, really important.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I love this.
So I think about it in like just on a day-to-day level. Like there's that level of it, of just staying convicted to, I decided I was going to do this today. I'm going to see that through.
Right.
But then you start to take it out over longer periods, or bigger goals and things that will take, maybe 3 months or 6 months or, 3 years to in order for you to hit. And it's a really interesting balance, I think, between the mental conviction behind it and also the flexibility within the process to be able to find new ways when obstacles arise.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think that's always a balance, and something that, we just kind of have to sort through in the moment.
Right.
Okay, is it an obstacle that's going to take me off my track and send me off in another direction? Or am I just finding my way around it and finding a new way?
Right. Yeah, sometimes you have to kind of divert.
Because there are certain people who will just... They'll keep keep banging their head against the wall, and it's like, no, I'm convicted. And I think that's kind of a place where it can tip into fanaticism. Yeah.
Absolutely, because
I have to do it this way.
Yeah, well, that's just the need to be right. That's digging the heels in. Not so great.
Not so fun, that's for sure.
Not so fun. It's resisting the true path.
Yeah.
I love this.
And then there's the other part of that, though, where people will quit at obstacles.
Yes, and you can always get through the obstacle. Man, when you get through the obstacle, there's just so much goodness.
Yeah.
And the obstacles are usually those silent ones that are inside, that are boiling up, like the doubt, the fear, the worry, the anxiety. is just get through them, everyone. If you need help, email us. We're really good at that.
Yeah.
I had a client the other day say, you're so good at getting to the thing. And I was like, yep.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
It's what we do. It's really about, it's one of my favorite things in the world.
Yeah.
When I work with people is to find that thing. Like,
Exactly.
what is that thing? And it's really in the internal game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when I think about people, especially people who are like, they're really, they've got cool goals. They're good at what they do. Just trying to find more efficient ways to get there. It's like, they already know.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things that they already know.
Right.
It's the internal game that really twists them up.
Yeah.
And then they can't really fully access like the knowledge that they already have in there because they get into doubt or maybe fear or limiting belief or something like that comes in the way. And then that sends them spinning off and they wind up in these kind of like circular patterns. But man, like when you really know how to find that thing and solve that thing, they get to access that wisdom and that knowledge that's already there within them and really put it to amazing use.
For sure. Love it.
I just think that's cool.
Such good stuff. I'm going to read this one more time and geek out. Conviction has a quality of steadfastness, which demands the intellect to hold the thoughts and focus steady on actions and towards an ideal.
One more time.
Conviction has a quality of steadfastness, which demands the intellect to hold the thoughts and focus steady on actions and towards an ideal. So there's a steady focus that are on actions that are going towards an ideal. Can't miss with that one, everyone. You can't miss.
You really can't. And he's not saying you have to get there a certain way.
Yeah.
He's not saying like you have to do it this way or that way. He's not saying it has to take this long or that long. He's just saying
hold steady
on the ideal.
Yeah.
It comes back to that.
Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah.
Anyways, excited for next week. We've got some cool stuff coming up for you, so stay tuned. But for now, super appreciate everyone. And hope this is helpful. Let us know if you have any questions, info@sourcemovement.com or ping us on Instagram. I'm Kisma Wake. Nick is the mystic next door.
That's right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Have an amazing day. Namaste.
Peace. Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.